Hello and welcome to Roleplay Rejects, where we play new and unusual tabletop role-playing games. In Side Quest, we're taking a break from our longer stories to play just a few sessions of some very unique role-playing games out there. So sit back and enjoy. Pop off.
I was gonna say,
Pop off.
we're gonna start with. We usually start with what we like, right?
Yeah.
I personally am a big fan of the HP system.
Yeah.
Me personally, like just making the checks harder every time you get hit and going until you fail, I think is really, really cool. I don't think I've seen a game so far do that outright like this one does. I mean, there are ones that are like you get worse as you get damaged, but they still have like a max health pool kind of system. It was kind of cool to just be like, no, just keep going until you don't.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. I really like that too.
Mm-hmm.
I like the I like how much you can program your abilities.
Me too.
Down to like every small little thing is an option. Like I think I went through like 4 or 5 different types of characters that I could play, and all of them were vastly different, even though it's all using the same rules.
Yeah, this is very, very customizable.
Yeah, this gives me it gives me Force and Destiny vibes, as far as like, you know how we talked about how like you could all start out as like the same archetype of Jedi, but then like
Develop
the
very
way
differently.
you go down the tree is like can turn you into a totally different type of character. I feel like this game does that, but on steroids,
Yeah,
right?
it-
Like
well, it
we
front
could
loads
have
all
all
of it.
been gravity-based people, but then
Been pretty
took
different.
total different turns with it, which I think is really cool. I really like the idea of it.
Yeah. The game system itself also very much lends itself to the individuality of each character.
Yes.
Wherein it doesn't matter what the power is. Like you can have 2 people that have a ranged damage effect. And it's like, okay, well, your melee damage was your long tentacles. His melee damage was a scythe, and he also had a little bit of reach on it, you know, and he's blasting fireballs. So it's like, it's all damage.
Yes.
You know what I
Yeah.
mean?
Yeah, I really like how they incorporate flavor almost like mechanically with how they do
Mhm.
everything. It's really cool because you have the different flaws and advantages.
Yeah.
Like you have the personal advantages and you have the advantages on your powers and the flaws and stuff. I really did like how involved it was. Like how, yeah, that shit's sick.
One thing that we didn't really talk too much about is that all of your powers come with descriptors
Tags.
or tags to kind of like more flesh out your characters, because a lot of times we'll see something like the is it like resistance or immunity effects?
Yeah, so like for the immunity powers, that is where the descriptors definitely come into play, because at the higher ranks you can just choose specific like power descriptors to be immune to.
Cool.
So like for the really like small ones, you can be like, I'm immune to bullets. Or you can be like, I'm immune to radiation. And then for the higher ones, it's like, no, I'm immune to all heat-based effects. I'm immune to all cold-based effects. I'm immune to magic.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, because like I had immunity and I had water breathing, so like I can breathe underwater, and then I also had deep sea immunity. So had we gone deep sea, like I wouldn't have been crushed to death or
Cool.
freeze to death or whatever.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
That's like the tags are cool that you can have them be like really specific or really broad.
Yeah,
Which I've never said about a tag-based system before, so you're welcome. So that's usually not my favorite.
Yeah. Honest, this game's so fucking
I
good.
also really like the balancing, like how,
Yes.
like kind of a lot of it. Like I liked how you couldn't beat certain scores, right? So if I like, because we're power level 10, my I fuck this up every time. My dodge and my toughness
Yes.
together couldn't exceed 20, and I think that's cool. That's the end of that sentence.
Yeah, no,
Yeah.
I thought it was going to be a lot less balanced. Because I was looking at all of the powers, and I knew a little bit about what each of us had chosen, and I was like, man, there's no way that everybody is going to be able to feel cool and also still have like fights be difficult. But I was wrong, and that's really cool.
Yeah.
Because I was worried about that. I was like, oh man, this is either we're all going to feel not like superheroes, and that's going to suck. Or
we're gonna feel like the Avengers fighting
We're-
like
yeah.
common crooks.
yeah, and that's going to also not be super fun. But yeah, I stand corrected. The other thing that I really liked is the minions thing. I wish more games did the
Yeah.
minions thing.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Because sometimes, like, as a GM, you want your people to, like,
Cleave through minions.
yeah, like,
Yeah.
and you want to give them the opportunity to show off some of their cool powers or, like, their cool weapons or whatever, right? And so, if I were to steal anything from this game, I think it would be the minions
The
thing.
ability to not be unlucky hitting like literal like just
Mhm.
trash mobs is
Mhm.
sick.
Yeah.
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 And like everything about it, right? That like minions can't score critical hits against non-minions. I love that, right? Because like they can hurt you, but they're not gonna
They're not gonna suddenly
kill you.
Yeah.
Like
You're not
like
a level 15 adventure with a goblin that just managed to get lucky.
exactly.
Yep.
But also like the idea that you can take down whole swaths of them if you just take 10, and like I think that is such a cool concept, and I wish more games did that.
Yeah.
I agree.
Totally agree.
Because you can also modify your character to be more focused in just like slogging through those types of enemies. You know what I mean? Where it's
Mhm.
like, oh, if you're a minion, you're gone.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
also
what I
see
mean?
that there are advantages where you can like kind of chain attacks together.
Yes, exactly. So there's like that style of thing, and also you can just be like, well, burst area damage 1,000,000 feet. You know what I mean? It's like
Mhm.
it's gonna be pretty costly, but like any minion in that area is done
Close.
for.
Yeah, because that was cool when you like dive bombed and
Yeah.
like
Mhm.
did
Yeah.
the strafing run and just like completely annihilated them
Took
because
out
all
the
it
group.
all
Yeah.
it took was for them to fail even 1 degree,
Yep.
Mhm.
Yep.
and that was
Yeah.
enough.
And then that helps you feel cool as the
Mhm.
hero.
Yeah.
And also like
And it helps the
sets the
bad guy.
stage.
Yeah, it
be
lets
a
you know
cool
who's
bad
a
guy.
problem
Yes.
because like
Yeah.
when you dive on someone and they don't instantly evaporate, you're like, okay, this guy's actually like a guy.
yeah. Well, and honestly also like it just helps the GM set the stage of like how powerful this guy is, or
Yes.
like how maybe they're not that powerful, but they are an Amon type person who has a lot of backing, and so like in order to show that, you want to have like this whole crowd of minions that
Mhm.
are like all in agreement with that person, right? Like there's a lot that you can do as a GM in that regard, and I think that's really cool. Because in a lot of other games, like it's kind of like you've got the big bad and like a couple of little minion dudes, but you don't want to like overpower your players too much, and so
Mhm.
then you have to like weirdly balance that out, and
Yeah.
like
I
this,
think
I feel like you get to have the everything you want,
Mhm.
really.
yeah, I feel like the like this system definitely makes it, I think, much more fun in the way that like minions are supposed to work in that sort of regard, where it's like every single time you're going into like a boss fight or whatever, you're going to have a couple minions, and most of the time in other systems where there's like HP pools and stuff, they're just shields. You know,
Mhm.
Yeah.
they're there to kind of distract you a little bit and like take up a turn. In this one, it's sort of the same, but it makes it so that you as a DM don't have to be nearly as afraid of putting in 100 minions, you know,
Yeah.
15 like minions at a time, because it's like, well, one area effect and 20 of them are gone.
Yeah.
It's also nice because I think in other systems sometimes you put minions in and you're like, this will only take like a couple rounds to go down,
Mm-hmm.
but you forgot that you have the single most unlucky party. So what should have gone down in relatively like about 2 to 3 rounds is still there round 11, and you're like,
Mhm.
what do I do? You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Like,
Yeah.
Or you threw 10 minions at them and they all hit them for a different amount of damage, and now you have to keep track of 10 HP
Mhm.
pools, and you're like,
Yes.
who is who? I forgot which one lost a limb.
mhm.
Like, that's a pain. And so having minions just feel like minions
yeah, just
is
having them
great.
blow up.
Yeah.
The system itself is supposed to play out and feel like you're going through a comic book.
Yep.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of the mechanics definitely work to support that.
Yeah, it
Yeah,
does
I
a great
agree.
job at that.
Sorry. Do you have a positive?
Yes.
Okay, go for it.
I was gonna say I also like how I feel like some systems are just better at certain vibes. And I feel like this one was really good at moments making a collaborative effort, right? Like I feel like especially like and we ended up going back in time kind of, but when the building was falling, that was really like cool. One, it was cool to see how many different ways we could have taken care of it because we talked about like a few different options.
Yeah.
And also it was cool that even though like people like every role could have done something, I feel like, whereas I feel like a lot of times in other systems it's like we have one guy that's good at dealing with like stuff like in this particular like with protecting people in particular, so we'll have him do it, whereas like you voiced the same thing but you were still able to intervene using your offensive abilities, right?
Yes.
Which I thought was really cool.
Yeah.
Another thing I really like, the levels of success.
I agree.
Degrees,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah, I love having degrees of success. Call of Cthulhu does it well too. I feel like this just takes that another step further, where it's breaking it up by fives, both directions, letting your good rolls be great rolls.
Yeah, because Pathfinder 2e has moved over to that kind of a system
Oh,
as
really?
well.
I didn't know that.
And it makes it so that then you're not like, oh, yep, that's a natural one. Nothing's going to happen from that. Or like, oh, it's a natural 3. I don't hit. And then moving on. Like, no, it does matter because, like, how much do you fail by or how much do you succeed by? You're not rolling a 19 and just be like, yeah, I hit. Let me go ahead and grab my d10, see how much damage I do. Now it's like, oh, I got a 19. How many degrees did I win by? Because that's going to affect this whole thing. And you're actually worried about every value on the die rather than just, is it above 10 or is it below 10?
Yeah, degrees.
It feels
degrees
more
is cool.
engaging.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that also utilizing the advantages allows you to put even more like stank on that, where you can do like accurate attack or power attack, where it's like, okay, well, normally I only have like a +5 to hit, but I really need to make sure that I hit this guy. So I'm going to subtract some damage ranks and add +5. You know, like things like that.
Yeah. Before, do you have more pros?
I have one more pro.
Okay. Sorry. I don't want to like skip ahead. I just have a question that I want to get to before we go on to cons. So
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So my final pro is I love that the character sheet is one sheet.
Yeah.
Agreed.
one page, not front and back, just one
page. Now I do have some complaints about this character sheet, but we'll get to that in cons.
Yeah. Okay, real quick before we move on to cons, unless your noses are positive.
I do have one positive.
go for it.
Nose. Keywords. I actually do think that keywords, there's also a con associated to that, but I do think that keywords make things a lot easier to look at because when it took me a little bit to get to this point, but when I heard that your ability, Phoenix, was burst, I immediately knew what that meant.
Yeah.
Yes.
And instead of like, yeah, so this attack, an area 30 feet, kind of like a fireball. Instead of that whole line of dialogue, it's like, oh, it's a 30-foot burst.
Yeah.
Easy.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that added to the comic book feel too, of being
Yes.
able to be like, oh, you have regeneration, sick.
Mhm.
Everybody knows what that means. Or like, yeah, like, oh, burst, awesome. Pinpoint, got that. Like, I know what that means. So yeah, I agree.
Yeah, they've chosen some good keywords for this because I think City of Mist ended up doing the exact opposite.
I agree.
Finding the most complicated
The single worst keywords they could use.
Yeah.
I think they made a couple up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, so before we move on to cons, as a GM, would you say this is easy to run for beginner GMs? Like if this was your very first game you ever ran for other people, would you say that's easy, or would you say it's kind of difficult, or like bad, be seasoned before you run this game?
I would say if you are really focused on actually playing the game by the rules, this is definitely for seasoned DMs
Okay.
for sure. Mostly just because there's a lot of math on the fly involved. But if you're not necessarily focused on that and you're kind of just trying to like play a fun, cool, like comic book style superhero story, if you started at a lower power level, yeah, for sure. Because power level, it's just 15 power points per power level. You guys started at the recommended Heroes Handbook starting level, which is power level 10. So it's 150 points. But you could just start at power level 1. And you guys could just be like, that would be essentially the equivalent of like a low magic world. And then it's like, okay, well, you have 15 points to spend on kind of whatever you want.
That could be cool as kind of like a high school kind of like detective kind of a comic.
Yeah,
game.
and there's a bunch of other books that are like supplemental to it. Like there's like the Supernatural Handbook, and there's like something about like cosmic stuff, and there's like the Gadget Guide and things like that. There's a lot of really good resources, and especially the Power Profiles book that just gives you powers. It literally just tells you what some of these powers are, and it breaks it down by theme. Like Power Profiles is, I think, like my favorite.
That shit is helpful as hell.
Yeah,
that is a really good resource.
Yeah, exactly, because it's like shadow powers, gravity powers,
'cause
fire powers.
You pulled.
I pulled, I think,
almost all of them.
3 or 4.
Yeah,
it was like most of them. Yeah. It might have been all of them.
Yeah. So
yeah, because even the gear I got from the gear thing. They had gravity related powers. Right? I guess they were technically kinetic. I think. Kinetic or force, but the gravity gauntlets are literally ripped from the Gadget Guide. Like, I didn't edit anything about it except I made them gloves and not gauntlets.
Yeah. So I would say probably technically not. I don't think that this is a very easy game for like a beginner GM to run. But I do think that if you start at maybe a lower power level and sort of begin to understand the rules a bit, it like even like a mid-tier GM could definitely run this, I think, pretty effectively.
I have a follow-up question to that before we go on to whether or not players feel the same way. You've played 5e before. Have you DM'd for 5e?
Almost exclusively.
Okay, cool.
It runs in the family.
This I feel like, and if you guys hate this, that's okay. But I think I would like to start adding this to our question when we review games. Would it be easier to homebrew 5e to look
to give it
like
a
superhero game, or would it be easier to learn this game and play it?
It would be easier to homebrew 5e for sure. But that's only because of the amount of math involved.
Okay, so if you're not scared of math.
And that's the thing is like, it's the math that is involved in this game is almost exclusively during character creation. Like once you have character creation down, you can GM this like nobody's business. It's like really not a problem.
And they have a lot of really good examples in the book. So if you want to skip character creation, I feel like you could do 90% of it just grabbing,
they have some
fire
archetypes, I think, completely fleshed out for you.
Oh,
yes,
awesome.
they do.
Yeah.
They also have a book called The Sentinels, where they just literally give you like 6 or 7 other heroes that are all like going down the archetypes. They have like a super strong one. They have a crime fighter. There's a kid robot, and their name is Kid Robot.
Nice.
I am for adding that question. I think it's a good thing to.
Yeah. So I think if you understand what the different things on the sheet mean, like range damage 15 and like fortitude and toughness and that style, and that type of thing, then yeah, it's actually pretty easy.
Cool.
Yeah, I do think it's interesting talking about difficulty DMing games, because I feel like there are 2 camps in that. I feel like there is one like, I guess not camp, I guess like area of difficulty, which is the material itself, right? Which I think is mostly character creation and understanding the system, where it's all front loaded. Whereas then there's the actual complexity of actual play, where it's like, I have my character sheet done. How hard is it to use this finished character sheet, right? Because as I was playing, I personally, I didn't like. I made my character this morning, so I didn't have like a good read of the hero's handbook, but I didn't feel like it was super hard to use my abilities in
Yes.
play.
Yeah, I
Yes.
agree.
Right. I do feel like the hardest part, even as a player, was character creation.
Yeah.
I
Right. So-
totally agree.
Yeah, and for that reason, I would say if personally, I would say if your whole table is brand new to this game, it would be very difficult
Yes.
because of the character creation aspect. But if you have a GM who's done it before, or you have a player at your table who's done it before, and they can help you through character creation, then I would say just give it a chance, because I had like for sure one mental breakdown, on the verge of a couple others while making my character. And it was also so fun once we actually got to playing. But like the creation aspect of it is just different from any other game that we've created. And like, yes, there's the math, but also it was just, while it's a pro that you can get super detailed in exactly what you want your character to be, it can also become very overwhelming
Mm-hmm.
because you
Yeah.
get that like analysis paralysis going.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to City of Mist, but even worse, because City of Mist is like very broad stroke, whereas
It's like
this
every
is like
detail.
every tiny detail, which is again cool, but you've got to get through it first
Yeah.
before it becomes cool.
Yeah.
The analysis paralysis is real with this one.
I agree.
And
Yeah, like okay, I 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I ended up with 12 powers that I ended up using. I found 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. I found 27 powers originally that I thought could fit in with my character, and a couple of the powers I ended up getting weren't even on that list of 27.
Mhm.
So like that's where the mental breakdown came. I
think-
was like, oh my gosh, what do I do?
I think one of the things that make it really difficult. I'm so sorry, you have a nose. Do you want to go first? I'm gonna let you go first.
oh, okay. Yeah, I think in our group, right, a bunch of seasoned RPG players, we took almost as long on character creation as we did playing the game.
Yeah.
For a one shot, which would be kind of disheartening for a new player or someone
Yes.
without as much experience,
Mhm.
because we did the whole episode and then most of us spent an hour or two on it this morning
Mhm.
before we got to play the game, right? And I feel like a brand new player probably doesn't want to put that much time and effort into it, because it's like making a 10th level 5e character or a 10th level Pathfinder character. There are
Yes.
that many options.
Mhm. But along with that, and then I'll let you go.
Mhm.
I almost put that into the pro category as well, which I know sounds backwards, but hear me out. If you're going to play this game and you realize that it's set up for doing one shot / like maybe 5-ish sessions per thing, and you get to keep that character, and like
Yeah.
your game is less of a weekly or a monthly or whatever session that has like this big long overarching story. If your whole table is cool with you doing comic booky, almost like Saturday morning cartoon type adventures, then this would be really awesome, because even though the character creation part sucks, once you get through that and you have this cool hero that you like playing, you don't ever have to recreate your character, and you can just kind of pick it up. And I feel like that makes it more accessible for most tables,
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
because most tables are not goated like we are and play every single week.
Mhm.
Most tables have a hard time with scheduling and yada yada. So then it also helps with that, because you could be like, okay, so and so can't make it today. That just means that we're missing Spider-Man out of the Avengers today.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Sucks, but
Yeah.
that sometimes it happens. He's doing other stuff, right? And like you don't have to worry necessarily about like, oh, our druid isn't here and their story arc is what we're working on, so now we can't play at all, right?
And we don't
So,
have any healers.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Anyway, back to con. Sorry.
I do think this warrants. A lot of people like to lump in session 0, like what we want as a table, with character creation.
Yeah.
I think this warrants character creation the day, right? Like,
Yes.
plan nothing else,
Mhm.
like your usual playtime. To either, I would say either start or finish. Ideally both, I guess. But like, for me, what ended up working a lot more, like, because we got like a brief exposition on how the game works before I started actually making my actual character, so it helped to have that. And then I made it like kind of a lot this morning, and then I came a little early and then got to ask Garrett questions about some of the things that were a little more technical.
Mm-hmm.
Also, I think a large portion of the difficulty comes from, in a lot of systems, your point pool is per thing. And what I mean by that, like,
Yes.
it's
Mhm.
using Pathfinder as an example, right? You have your stats that you put into your ability scores, then you pick X amount of feats, and then you, if you're a spellcaster, you pick your spells. Like, it's kind of all compartmentalized into its specific categories.
Mm-hmm.
For this, your 150 PowerPoints that we had, because we were power level 10, it was for everything, right? It was for any tech we wanted, it was for our ability modifiers, it was for our skills, it was for our advantages,
Your
and it was for our powers,
defense.
your defensive
And
skills,
Our headquarters,
our headquarters,
vehicle.
like literally everything. And it's cool because it gives you that level of granularity. But it's also like, especially if this is your first time playing, you don't know what you like. And so it's like, like Missy said, we all got to be pretty cool and it all worked balanced out pretty well.
And you don't know what's good.
You don't know what's
Yeah.
good. You don't know how many ranks you want in something,
Yeah.
right? And so it's
Uh-huh.
like, you're kind of just like if you've never played at all, you're kind of winging it. And then you're also like, well, fuck, dude, I may or may not want to be squishy, but I also want this power to be cool. Like, what do I care about more, right?
Mhm.
And so it's like, it's really cool. I think it's really cool. I reckon it would be even better playing the game one time and then making a character a second time with
Mhm.
the relevant understanding. Because now you're like, okay, I've played it, I get it. I'm gonna make an AI now.
Yeah, and going along with that, I think GMs, if you're doing this game, I would highly encourage you to utilize the lemon law and like utilize it frequently isn't the word I'm looking for, but like
That-
generously.
Liberally.
Yeah,
Mm,
because if for example earlier I was like, oh, my dark vision means I can't see in my inky cloud, that kind of sucks. I didn't realize that would be an issue. Obviously with the amount of time we had to play this game in particular, like we didn't have time to do lemon law type stuff. But if that were the case, it would have been really awesome to be like, have that realization, be like, okay, I'm gonna morph this a little bit starting next adventure. I can see through my ink cloud.
Mhm.
This adventure I'll keep it as is, but next adventure I'll try that out and see if that is more what I was wanting. And then I agree too, like you can also do that in making a character and then remaking it later, but I personally would not want to fully remake a character.
I would almost
so-
recommend, because they have those pages where it's just like battle suit and like it's a character. They have like
Yeah.
quite a few of those.
Mhm.
I would
Archetype.
almost recommend doing a one shot with the pre-generated characters,
Yes.
just to get
Yeah.
a feel of the game,
Yes.
and then be like, oh, okay, I understand what these ranks are and how they affect the flow of the game. Now I have a
Mhm.
better understanding of like what I want in a character.
Yeah.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah, I definitely think that going through the archetype, like right at the beginning, where you could essentially just pick, like, yeah, I think this archetype is cool, and then you read through that sheet, and there's also like the quick start guide that is
Yes.
further in it, and that is extremely helpful.
That's
because
what
it-
I used. I really
Yeah.
liked it.
Me
So,
too.
because that just, it does it for you, where it breaks it down. It's like, okay, well, if you want to be a little bit more customizable, then you can choose some of these options. But I think essentially just going through like the archetype and being like, oh, okay, range damage, and then going down, reading the extra range, reading the damage power, and you're like, oh, okay, I get that. Flight, going to that. Oh, it's subtle. What does that mean? You know, and like going to the extras and actually checking to see what each of the extras and the flaws means. Because then as soon as you do that, you pretty much understand the whole game.
Mm-hmm.
Mhm.
Yeah, as far as the points go, there were a couple instances in here that I think slow the game down.
Yes.
For instance, I got a crit. One of the options that I have was a variant effect where I could allocate power points up to the power that I used on some other new effect, if I'm understanding that correctly.
Yes, it is alternate effect, which means that you essentially just get the use of as if you had an array, which means that you can spend up to the amount of points that you spent on that power to create another power and use it in that one instance.
Very, very cool.
Mm-hmm.
I would need to play this game nonstop for probably 6 months before I would be able to, on the fly, do something like that.
And I would never be able to do that because my brain does not work that way.
I think, and you kind of said a similar thing earlier with the variant power.
Mm-hmm.
I think you would just pick things that you like a lot
Mm-hmm.
and have them ready for use in that specific scenario.
Right.
I can't imagine, and I'm sure people are brainiacs, right? I'm sure people do this. I think that would be a lot more feasible for the average player than on the fly being like, oh, 15 points, say less, blink, and then just making another ability, right? Like,
Yeah. I
Yeah,
much
I
preferred the
agree
way
with
that
that.
we kind of ran it, where I was like, I don't know how to do this. I just want him to be vulnerable.
Mm-hmm.
And
yes,
I think that
and
was...
for me, I essentially was doing exactly that, wherein I was taking however many power points you had, and I was like, oh, okay, you're doing the alternate effect. I'm just giving him an affliction. It's going to be ranged. You spent 25 points on your power or whatever. Like, I don't know exactly how many points it was, but I was like, okay, well, affliction's only 1 point per rank. I'll make it a DC 15.
Mhm.
Like,
Cool.
check.
Yeah, and just kind of like rounding it to something that sounds about right, I think is perfectly fine. There's also powers that I would stay away from, especially your first several times.
Mm-hmm.
Variant.
Or variable? You're talking about the
variable.
one where
Yeah.
you can just choose individual powers? Yes. Variable is extremely complicated.
That one, there was under, is it shapeshifting, having the morph extra?
Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
That one also allows you to like reallocate points. The best way to do it would probably be with like having a couple different templates to run.
Yes. So
that one was just shape shifting in general. There's like shape shifting variable, and that's the one that you're
Okay.
thinking of where it's like
yes.
chaos. But I had shape shifting morph, and that was like specifically I can only morph with the ranks I put into it. I can only morph into humanoids, and so that puts like a very easy like cap on it.
Mhm.
But the variable one was like you get to choose certain things that you can and can't do, and
Yeah, because
you have to create multiple templates because then you get, it's similar to a druid where like if you turn into a bear, now you get bear abilities with strength and claw attacks and blah blah blah. Whereas the morph power is more like, and this is kind of what we talked about earlier, it's more like Mystique, where she can morph into looking like the senator, but she doesn't necessarily, but like she can still kick people's asses even though the senator's like in his 70s, right?
Yeah, you don't change your physical attributes, just your physical appearance.
Yeah.
And the last one is a dynamic array, which is something that I ran with, which is why I was able to allocate between strength fighting and speed kind of as I wished. That still took probably like 20 to 30 minutes of Garrett explaining it to me like I'm a 3-year-old before it finally ended up clicking.
Yeah.
Definitely recommend having someone who has played this game before run you through it. Or if you do run through this, start at power level 1, do like some teen superpower
baby
kind of a
step
game.
it.
Teen Titans.
I do, probably unpopular opinion, and like coming from me, right? I didn't DM the game. I do think if you're a guy who likes to read, because like a lot of TTRPG crazy statement, don't come for me for this, like don't burn my house down. A lot of TTRPG enjoyers do not like to read, right? And I'm one of them, right? But if you are a guy who enjoys reading, I think you can probably break it down pretty decently. You would have to like no shit spend time reading these books to like truly understand it. But I don't think any concept is like the base rules I don't think are that wild conceptually. And so I think once you get past the analysis paralysis and just like kind of break things down to their keywords and abilities, I think you'll have a decently okay time. I still wouldn't pick this for like your first game or whatever, But if you really fuck with words, I think you could pick this up. And like, I don't think you would have to limit to yourself on a super low power level. As long as someone like just like really reads the book, in my opinion. There's several noses now.
Yeah, on that same vein, I would say for new players, stick to the one book, the like
The Hero's
the
Handbook.
Hero's
Yeah.
Handbook and like the Game Master Handbook. Just stick to those two, because we had like 20 of them that
And they were so cool.
they're so cool, and like pulling gadgets out of the gadgets one was fun. But I also forgot where my helicopter was and spent like 20 minutes trying to figure out which book that was in. So
Yeah.
um, for a brand new player, especially someone newer to TTRPGs, I would just hand them the one book and be like, if you want more, there is more.
Yeah, and like
later.
kind of grow on it like you would with Pathfinder or 5e, where you usually do start with just the player's handbook. And then people are like, oh, but have you heard of
Tasha's Cauldron of Everything.
And then you're like, no, what's that? And then you look through it and you're like, oh my gosh,
More
next
stuff.
character, I'm going to do this, right?
Mhm.
And so I think this game is definitely similar to that,
Yes.
where it's like the expansions are sick, but like slow down. Don't bite off more than you can chew.
One thing that I forgot to mention in the pros, the measurements table.
Oh,
Yes.
Might be
yes.
my
Yeah,
most
these
favorite
tables
table
are great.
It's my
in
favorite.
all of existence. So for reference, what it is it gives you a rank from -5 all the way up to 30. You can do math to go further than that. But basically, if you have a rank that relates to the amount of mass that you can pick up, it's right here. So
Mhm.
if I had a strength of 5, I could pick up 1,600 pounds. Or
Almost
let's say
50.
it's something relating to time. So a time rank of 5. A time rank of 5 is 4 minutes. Or what ended up happening with me quite a bit is speed. So that's your distance. So I had a speed rank of 4 at one point. So if I just look at the table, speed rank of 4, that is 500 feet.
We'll throw some examples on the Instagram if you guys are curious about
The tables.
seeing the tables.
Mhm.
Yeah. Did you make these tables yourself, or
No, so those are directly out of the book.
Mhm.
Okay.
And I actually just printed these ones out. They're one of the things that you can get, I think, from one of the like starter kits and things like that,
Okay,
where it's
cool.
just like useful things.
Yeah, it's so nice. I love a good cheat sheet.
Me
Yeah.
too.
So I agree.
Don't we all?
No, I knew it was going to be a necessity.
Yeah, and it was, because I don't know what's going on 99% of the time.
Mhm.
So super helpful. You have a nose.
Did you also have a nose?
Oh yeah, I was just gonna say, like, in general, for like going back to the different archetypes and things like that. The like for beginner DMs as well, and sticking to the Hero's Handbook and the DMG, or the GMG, the Game Master's Guide also includes like essentially the villain equivalent of the archetypes. It gives you villain archetypes where it's like the Mastermind, the like the shapeshifter, that is one of them, or like the Master of Disguise, I think, which is like the Mystique style. This last one, Mikey, that I had you guys going up against, he was actually, his archetype was I don't even remember what it's called, but it's like conglomeration or something like that, where it is a the archetype itself is normally just a mass of other things that have come together to create like one shape.
Cool.
And then, of course, like, you know, you can just add things onto it, like for fun, like his mind control power. That's not in the sheet. You know what I mean? His like the ability to create these other things that like grow legs and gain a limited amount of sentience. That's not in the sheet. I was just throwing that in there for flavor.
cool?
It's really cool. You
I just wanted to voice. I like the Power Profiles book a lot. It carried me through my character creation. I think it could be helpful. I think it's literally exclusively helpful because it doesn't cover everything, right? I think it's exclusively helpful if you're like me, where you're like, I want to make a gravity guy, and you open up the Power Profiles and it says gravity powers, and you're like, sick. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I think if you're like, I want to be a cuttlefish, and you open up the Power Profiles and it does not say cuttlefish, I think then disregard it, right?
Yeah.
But I think if it does say the thing you want, go for it.
But
Yeah.
I agree. But I also think be humble
Mm-hmm.
as your
down.
first time. Yes, sit down,
Mhm.
be humble, and realize your first time playing that like it's okay to maybe just be
A Human Torch clone.
yeah,
It was
exactly.
great.
It is,
Or
yeah.
to just be like a Wonder Woman type, or to just be the Thing, right? Because they already have those archetypes created for you, and you can like maybe change a power or two out. But then once you understand what your character should look like, then I think it makes a lot of sense to be
start
like,
picking
I
and
really want to
choosing.
do gravity, and then go into it. Because like for me, I was like, I want to be a cuttlefish, and bruh,
You had no
girlfriend,
idea
like,
at the time.
why couldn't you just be Raven? Like, you thought about it. You really did. It existed in the book. Like, just go be Raven. It's okay. No one's gonna be like, wow, you stole that. We steal everything.
Yeah, there's
So-
only like so many story narratives that you can pick from.
Yeah.
So,
I literally stole my character from Seven Deadly Sins. So
yeah, Hunter Fresco crazy.
Yeah. So that's my thing, is I agree that like the expansion books are sick and they're really helpful. And I could not have become a cuttlefish without one. However, girlfriend,
Yeah,
what would have been really cool is if you didn't give yourself a panic attack and just decided to be literally any superhero that's ever existed already.
I do think one-shot pre-gen characters. I think like I don't normally feel the need to recommend that. I would heavily recommend that for this game. It doesn't even have to be
me
that
too.
long. You could even just do like battle simulator, and just like try it out in battle, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really helpful before you start building stuff.
You have a nose.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, absolutely agree. It is not a bad idea, and I would say, in fact, it's a very good idea to just lean on tropes. Like,
Yeah.
it's especially in like this style of thing where it's kind of campy, you know. It's like you can do whatever you want. If you want to tell a serious story, go ahead. You know what I mean? That's like completely fine. There are tropes in that too.
Yes.
It's like it's nobody's gonna fault you, I think, and especially in like a home game for being like, oh, wait a minute, that guy's just Magneto.
It will literally happen no matter what you do.
Yeah.
Like you make it
Exactly.
a completely original character, and they'll be like, "Dude, this is the 5th time you played as Sonic the Hedgehog," and you're like, "Oh fuck!" Like you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it just happens.
But remember what we said about City of Mist, if you've listened to that. The whole thing that we told you to steal from that game was to remember to steal from stuff in general,
Yeah, I
right?
mean-
So like same thing here. Like I don't know why I decided that I couldn't steal from things for this game, even though I just played City of Mist. But like it's okay to steal
Yeah.
Magneto or to
Dr. Phantasma. I wonder who that could be.
yeah. Like it's okay. It's okay. And it actually is probably more fun to do that at least at first, so that you
And
don't
it makes it
panic.
so much easier. Just truly so much easier.
Yeah.
Because then you're like, well, what would that like archetype have? What would this character trope be? You know?
Yeah. Do we have any other cons before we wrap up?
I have one final con. This character sheet does not have the skills on it.
Oh, yeah.
Correct.
Yeah, and so when you're telling me to roll for perception, I'm like, do I have any points in perception? And what do I add that to? And I did write down my skills all in one place, but I didn't know that I didn't have any in perception, because I didn't know that was even an option until we were partway through the game. So while I love the simplicity of this character sheet, I think it does need the skills,
I agree.
unfortunately.
I agree.
Yeah.
Wesley disagrees.
I do disagree.
Okay.
I'm like not fully in disagreement, because like for me, my experience playing was like if he says a skill that is not one of my abilities and I don't see it here, I assume 0. The only problem is like you said, like if it's like associated with an ability, I don't know what that association is.
Yes.
Yeah.
And then that falls on the GM to know what the association is, which isn't
Correct.
necessarily a bad thing, but like
Yeah, like,
GM just know that that's your job now.
It's one of those things where if like you have a DM screen with like the inserts, you can have it there, or you could just provide a printout to your players with the skills, which essentially would make it be like because there's a fuck ton, right?
There
So
are.
I don't think it could like you could probably take up maybe the entire back of the sheet with just the skills.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think there's like 14.
Yeah, there's a good
something.
amount. So you could probably fit them on the back, yeah. So if you, I think it'd be helpful to have it on the back of this sheet at least. It's like more like a neutral point because I'm totally content with him being like, do perception. I go, okay, what's the associated thing? And he says whatever the fuck it is, and I roll it. Right? Like I don't
Yeah.
mind. But I agree. It would be sick to not have to ask that every time.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a good point. And I think maybe yeah, I guess I'm neutral too. I've decided I'm neutral because like I didn't have any extra skill things, so it was pretty easy for me to be like, nope.
Yeah, I just go, what is that awareness? He goes, yep, and I roll. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like,
No, there are 16 skills.
See, and I think 16 could have fit, just cut this big box in the middle of the character sheet in like,
Yours,
make it 3/4 the size.
Yours is still different than ours.
I know, but still, your powers and abilities box or powers and devices box, just like make that a little bit smaller
Okay.
and put the skills on.
Sure.
I don't know, man. Like some of them get fucking weird, right? You have these flaws, you have advantages. I think the powers low-key needs the space.
Okay.
My opinion.
What about the complications or like the PowerPoints that you only use in character creation?
Oh, like on the bottom.
Yeah.
Yeah, like complications.
What is a complication?
I will say I almost guarantee that someone has had this problem and they have created a custom character sheet.
I would agree with you, but I spent like 20 minutes on Reddit trying to find one. And there was one behind a paywall that I did not get to. The others I did not like.
Also, I like yeah, I think a lot of games have cool custom character sheets. I will always judge the game on their base character sheet though.
I will
I
too.
agree.
Like,
Yeah.
But I am happy that there's only that one potential flaw in the character
in the
sheet.
sheet. Yeah, because
versus...
we've seen some shit character
Yeah.
sheets.
Yeah, I think this
Yeah.
one is like
This one's
90%
relatively
of the
simple.
way
It's nice
there.
and
Nice.
clean, except for my handwriting that's all over it.
Mhm.
But I do appreciate that I don't have to flip back and forth
Yes.
because I will just forget.
Yeah,
I
there's
feel
a
like
second
I've talked
page.
about this before.
No, there isn't.
Yeah. I feel like I've talked about this before, but like we've literally been playing our Kingmaker campaign in Pathfinder for eons. I forget all the time the feats that I have been playing for literally years. I just forget them sometimes. And then I'm
Same.
like, oh yeah, because I just haven't flipped my sheet over. So for me, it's nice to have the permanence of all of my things on one side of a sheet. But I know that that's not everybody's issue, so...
I will say I did make a little template for a character sheet for any RPG, which is an app.
Okay.
Sponsored.
So if
No,
you
but
want
that'd be
to
cool.
play this game, but you want like an electronic way to like manage your character, it's all possible in there. You're definitely gonna have to fuck with it a bit because every single power is different and yada yada yada. But maybe that could be a good starting point for your own.
Can they look up the template that you made?
I will be posting it in our Discord.
Nice.
Ooh,
Okay.
fancy.
Excellent.
I'm sorry, one more positive. I know, I'm sorry.
No one's mad at you.
Well, I
So
feel
mad.
I feel bad because I was like, "Are we done with the positives? I have a question."
I love this game. I'd always go back to the positives.
So, I really like that you have your core abilities, the like strength, stamina, presence, blah blah blah. But then you also have a separate defense category that's based off of those. But your defense stuff is your dodge, parry, fortitude, toughness, will. I really like that those are clearly defined because in Pathfinder, and it's been a while since I've played 5e, so I think it's the same in 5e, but I could be wrong. But those things are kind of jumbled in
Mixed into
to
the skills.
a bunch of the other skills, where it's like, oh yeah, where's my CMD again? Like, oh, what? It's somewhere in here. I know it, and then like I've got to add my whatever. But in this character sheet, it's very clearly defined, and I like that it's utilized frequently because I also feel like sometimes with other games such as Pathfinder, like it's not always used, and so sometimes you're flat-footed, whatever matters, and sometimes it doesn't, and yada yada. But in this game, it's like if somebody is attacking you, you will use one of these things. It's not just based off of the hit points and whether or not that worked. So I liked that because it gives you a clear distinction of like, this is my offense and this is my defense. And they work together, but they're also separate. So it gave my brain little happy chemicals.
Another thing I love about the character sheet is there are very few acronyms on this. You
Yes.
just saying like CMD, CMB, like triggered me because I was like, oh man, what is that one? It's
me and my
on the
homies
page
hate
somewhere.
acronyms.
Yeah.
Yeah, this one, there are only acronyms next to the defense ones, and those are like referencing the things right next to it. And so that makes it really easy to go back and forth. My printer was dumb, and so I couldn't tell strength from stamina a couple times, but that was my printer's fault, not the character sheet.
Yeah, bringing it back to pros again. I really enjoyed that you can, instead of upgrading the ability associated with your defensive stats, you can just spend power points on that defensive stat, right? Because like one of the if you don't want to be dexterous in Pathfinder, you just need good armor, and that blows. Like I should be able to parry attacks because I'm good at parrying attacks, not necessarily because I'm dexterous, right? So it's nice to be able to like have high strength, which in this case I think parry is strength related. Pretend it's not, or like in
Parry's
Pathfinder.
fighting related.
Okay, cool. It's nice to be able to have high strength so I can hit really hard, not necessarily have a high fighting stat. But if I want to be, because I think it makes sense for my character, I can still have decent parry. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
I think it isn't pretty cool when I'm playing Pathfinder. If I don't want to get hit a lot, I need to either buy expensive armor or I have to put points in the dex because maybe I just want to play like a swordsman that doesn't wear armor. Well, maybe I want to play Samurai Jack, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to play Samurai Jack fully armored. Granted, Samurai Jack probably would be more dex build, but that's besides the point, right?
No, I think a good explanation for what you're saying is Wesley from Princess Bride, right? Like he doesn't wear a lot of armor, but he's really good at sword
Not getting hit.
fighting, and therefore his parry would be good, but he's not. He's sort of dexterous, but like not really. Like the rodent of unusual size still bites him, right? So like,
True.
You know what I mean? Like I feel like.
But to be fair, that is a huge rodent.
Sure, but but like I do like that it's broken up that way, where it's like dex can help with your long range, but fighting is melee based, and parry can go into it's sick. The end. You have noses.
Oh, my noses was just going to be like, you don't have to just purchase armor. You can also purchase like amulets or rings and things like that. To
True, but I can't
Sure,
just
then
be...
I have to be rich.
But
Why-
that's
Yeah.
whatever. Pathfinder best system. Where I think I want to go into where we would rank this in association to some of the other TTRPGs.
Okay.
We've already been rambling a good bit, but first,
No, sorry. I was just gonna sort of agree with like the defense system and things like that. Like, I think that the balancing is very interesting because towards the beginning there is a section. It's pretty small, and I actually missed it the first few times I played. So when I helped people build characters, I didn't pay attention to those caps. So they were stupid overpowered.
Yeah.
Right?
Okay.
But essentially it like lends itself to you being able to be like, okay, no, I'm never getting hit. Like I can't take a hit for shit, but I just have an AC of 30. You know what I mean? Like you can literally have an AC of 30.
Yeah.
You just won't be able to add anything to your toughness check at any point.
yeah, those limitations are really good.
Yeah, it's really cool. So ranking.
This is the best superhero game I've ever played.
I
other
100%
superhero games
agree.
are I was gonna say, like, I don't think I've played many others. Honestly, in terms of like actual gameplay, I'd rate it pretty high. I think.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah, I agree.
I think it's hard because the complexity, like, it's all front loaded, right? So the complexity of making a character, wild.
Yeah.
But the balance of like the system in place, I think it's pretty high up there to me. Like, I like it a lot. See other knows? I'm done rambling for now.
Okay. So we all know I loved Call of Cthulhu. It's my favorite game we've played. I would put this up with Call of Cthulhu if there was a PDF version of this character sheet like Call of Cthulhu's, where it did all of the math for me.
Which I think would be really hard with all of the abilities.
It would
I
be
already have it on
right,
the-
but you
Okay.
shouldn't have to create it. That's my
Someone's
that's
got
my
to.
Does the
no.
PDF? Well, that's the thing.
Someone
it should be
who
the
works
company,
for
right?
this company
is that
should have to
PDF?
create it.
Was that provided by Mr. Cthulhu himself?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, that's on their
And
website.
that's where
There's,
that's what I'm saying is like if it did the math for me and it looked at my things and like double checked it for me and whatever, I think I would put it as maybe my I would definitely say top 5 games we've played. I would say if it had the PDF, I would say probably top 3 games we've played. I really liked the simplicity of it once you started playing. But the character creation aspect of it puts it down a little bit for me as far as like the grand scheme of whatever.
Yeah, the total value
Yeah.
rank.
Because many Bothans died trying to make my character.
Do you? No.
Just to speak to the complexity of the system, I would say it's complex simply because of the possibilities
Mhm.
that there
Yes.
are.
Yep.
If you narrow everything down to just like, all right, I am not adding any extras or any flaws to anything. I am just doing base costs for all of the powers. It becomes a lot simpler. You know, it's still complex in that you're buying 150 points worth of things, but obviously you can just scale that down. Like power level 5, you have 75 points to spend on stuff. That's half of what you guys had, and I think that with 75 sort of just doing like base costs for things, you guys would be extremely interesting and possibly like fun to play characters. And that might make it a little bit simpler. Yeah.
I
So-
think. Sorry. Go ahead.
Okay, there it is. Yeah, there is a other calculator, Hero Lab, but it's a subscription-based service that does have Mutants
Yep.
and Masterminds 3rd edition
Mm-hmm.
on there. Buns, but it is an option if you absolutely need it. But
Yeah, and I think if this is a game that you're interested in playing, it could potentially be worth grabbing. I can't speak to it. I've never seen it, but it could be helpful. I just think like it would be super pog if Mutants and Masterminds came with that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Because I think complex games like this, similar to Call of Cthulhu, if we had to hand jam Call of Cthulhu's character sheet, I would be just as pissed, if not more, because it made me calculate the fifth and the half
that
and
shit
whatever.
was crazy. The
And
fractions.
your girl's not good at math, but because it didn't make me do that, it made me happy.
Hmm.
So I feel like it'd be super sick if they just like when they do 4th edition, just like add it, like just there's also a PDF version, because I think it's cool that you created that, and I think it's cool that you can create them, but I just don't feel like you should have to in order to make the game feel playable initially.
yeah, because the thing that I created is probably the most clunky hunk of junk in all of existence.
Oh,
but
no.
you know,
Hey,
it worked for me. I used it this
Yeah.
whole time.
yeah.
That's awesome.
I think this is crazy. Maybe I have like the rose-colored glasses because it's new. I think it's tied for me for favorite system with Call of Cthulhu, and I think the only difference is the vibe. Like if I want an
Mhm.
investigation-based game where I'm not likely to do cool shit, or if I want to be a superhero and do cool shit, it really just depends on what mood I'm in. But similar to Call of Cthulhu, I really enjoyed the play, and I like the buff that this has, because Call of Cthulhu does do some things better and it's not as complex. But the buff that this has is that I can be good at the things I want to be good at
Mhm.
specifically, and I
Yeah.
really, really enjoy that. Like to bring it back to the Pathfinder example, I don't have to cheat my way to higher AC. I can just have a higher AC by spending the points,
Mhm.
and I really, really enjoy that. And I haven't like that level of granularity we haven't really had in another game,
Yeah.
and because of that, I can just I just like that I get to pick and choose the things I'm good at, and then do those things, and I
Yeah.
enjoy that a lot.
I would say the advantage to this game over Call of Cthulhu is that you can have this be campy and funny and silly and goofy, or you can also flavor it to be dark and broody and DCE, right? Whereas Call of Cthulhu, like, you can't really do like a campy Call of Cthulhu.
That's what Pulp Cthulhu is for.
Right, but that's what I'm saying, right?
Yes,
Is like
yeah.
you do have to go to a different game in order to play a different genre. Like, if you're playing Cthulhu, you're playing Lovecraftian horror. Whereas with this game, you do get the breadth of
it is
whatever
very
you want
broad.
it to be, which I think is cool. So yeah, I agree. It's high up there.
It's
for
pretty
me.
sick. Yeah.
What do you guys think though? Because
Which is crazy because I did not think I was gonna like it this much.
yeah,
going
me
into
either.
it.
Yeah.
Me either. Because superheroes aren't even really my thing.
Same.
And I was like, this is sick.
Well, maybe I just like one that I
This
think
is so
because
fun.
I had the same thought at Nova. I was like, I don't really care about mechs, and Nova was fucking sick too. So
Yeah,
it's like-
yeah.
That makes me feel so happy.
For me, this ranks above Call of Cthulhu
Okay.
with Shadows of Starin, which is pretty close to Pathfinder.
Okay.
I really like the system. I think it's really fucking good. I enjoy complexity. Complexity's dope.
That's like how you ranked them. I can tell.
It's crazy to me that. I guess it's not that crazy to me because I know you love Pathfinder. But to me, it's crazy to me that these like that games are below Pathfinder to you. Just because I like.
You're forgetting the nostalgia buff
Yes.
that
True.
Pathfinder
Yeah.
gets, which I mean,
I am the
it's
news.
already an automatic +20. It's got True Strike, so like it's
Yeah.
not.
It's got True Strike. That's crazy. That's what a nerdy thing to say.
True Strike in 5e just gives you advantage.
Yeah, it does.
Which is bullshit. That's why Pathfinder's so much better. Anyways,
Isn't
Fight,
True Strike a
fight,
standard
fight,
action
fight.
though?
Yes.
Isn't a standard action in 5e as well?
Yeah, it's bad.
That shit sucks.
It's-
That is
it's
such a
bad.
waste of a turn.
No, yeah, that's the thing. It's a
Yeah.
standard action and it's concentration.
Yeah,
Ooh.
that shit. That spell
Yeah.
sucks.
Yeah,
like,
it's
hot
garbage.
Take. No, not even hot take. Very frigid take. True Strike
The
blows.
only
Yeah.
thing that makes it viable is being a sorcerer and being able to quicken spell it.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have to spend a sorcery point on a cantrip.
Yeah, it's
And if I'm spending a sorcery point on anything, it's
I'm
going to
gonna
be
just-
Eldritch Blast.
yeah,
So I
twin
can just-
spell.
Twin
Yeah.
Yeah.
My ranking. Okay. I am a sucker for a good setting.
Mhm.
And I feel like this one, because it is so broad, I would have to read some of the source books before I am really sold on the setting. Because it is like, again, like you can do whatever. And I like working in smaller boxes.
Like more defined.
Yeah, so I really like Star Wars, where it's like, you are a Jedi.
Mhm.
This is the Jedi Temple. This is the structure.
Okay.
And that's why I like Call of Cthulhu so much, too, especially as a GM, because there was so much background and so much lore and stuff that I could dive into. But I think that's also one of the pluses of this is that genericness allows you to do whatever you want. Yeah, it's hard for me to rank these because I am such a sucker for setting. I'd put it in my top 5.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it would be closer to 4 or 5, but top 5.
For reference, what is your top game you've played so far?
Oof,
To include games you played off, like Pathfinder and such. I guess
Yeah,
we played Pathfinder on the podcast.
Yeah, but like,
Yeah.
kind of.
there is the nostalgia buff on Pathfinder.
True strike, yeah.
I think
That's also crazy.
No. I think Call of Cthulhu is my top, partly just because I'm coming off the high of GMing it.
Mhm.
But Call of Cthulhu, then Pathfinder, then Star Wars, then Shadows of Asterin, and then this one.
I didn't realize people like that system so
Dude,
much.
Yeah, bro.
I've
We've been
watched
telling
that.
you. You're like,
the
man,
stance
I did
system.
horrible. And we're like, no,
Essentially-
I love it.
The stance system just by itself
That's
blew
actually
my
fucking
mind, and then I really like the way you level up in Shadows.
I
Mhm.
really like the way you level up in Shadows as well. Shadows is pretty sick. We should
It is.
revisit it. Patreon maybe one day.
Maybe.
Maybe.
But yeah, that's where I put it.
What about you?
Well, I am. Let's see. I think I've only ever actually DM'd like 4-ish different systems.
Okay.
So
Which
definitely top 5 for me.
Yeah.
I guess honestly, I would put this one top
Yeah.
for
I
me.
mean,
I
you
think
obviously love it, and
it's-
that really showed.
Yeah.
Which is
you.
sick. Yeah,
I do. I really, really love it. Especially because you can kind of just do and say whatever you want, and then do a
Mhm.
dice roll, and then it works.
Yeah.
Mhm.
You know. Yeah. I mean, I guess honestly, probably this, and then 5e's my baby.
Okay.
I know it like the back of my hand. So sorry.
What do you think
No,
of-
it's okay.
Have you
It's
heard
alright.
anything about 2024?
The new PHP.
The new, yeah.
I haven't looked into it at all.
Okay. I
Okay.
was just wondering.
And then, God, what else have I even GM'd? I GM'd the Fallout system.
Sick.
Okay.
That's a good.
That one was really good.
Oh,
I
that
actually,
is a good
Classic.
That's a
system.
good.
yeah, I downloaded it and GM'd it specifically because I heard it on your guys' podcast, and I was like, this is
Aw.
awesome.
Thank you.
This is so cool.
I think that would be my number 6. I really
It's
like
high up.
Fallout.
It was
It's
good.
my
It's
favorite
It's
luck
way
in
up there.
particular. It's my favorite.
Yeah.
use of
Yeah.
luck, I think.
Yeah, the
I
luck system's
I
great.
absolutely love that system of luck, and especially like I like it, and I love that they actually do the same thing in this system. It's just a superpower now,
Mhm.
Yeah,
And
I
you
saw
can
that.
also-
I saw that. Yeah.
and you can do the same thing with like advantages, and it just gives you even more luck points. It's like really, really cool. So if you want to literally have like I don't even remember the name, but the person in Deadpool 2, that's entire power is
Domino?
Domino.
Domino.
Yeah, her whole power is that she's just mad lucky. You can just do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'd say this is probably number 1 for me, and then 5e, and then Fallout.
Cool.
Cool.
Have you told us your favorite? Everyone else kind of dropped it. You don't have to have one right now. I was just curious.
Call of Cthulhu. is
Call of
my
Cthulhu.
favorite. Yeah.
Others.
Yeah.
All
But
right.
also like it's hard.
It's
'cause
nuance.
the
Yeah.
Games are fun.
Games are fun.
Yeah.
I'll tell you what my least favorite was.
Me too.
Potato RPG?
No,
No, City of Mist.
That shit
City of
blew.
Mist.
That city was so cool. That system blew. I feel so bad. I hope I never meet those guys who wrote it.
Yeah.
They're gonna
me
jump me if they
too.
meet me. Oh, they're gonna try. But
I have a quick question before we go because I know we've been trying to wrap up for the
Mhm.
past 40 minutes.
80 hours.
Oh,
Pretend that I was a reject in our Discord server.
All right, you smell bad.
And I was like, man,
Ew.
I'm super stinky,
Mm-hmm.
but I really want to play Mutants and Masterminds. But no one, including myself at my table, has played before. Would you be willing to chat with them if they had questions?
definitely.
Sick.
Are you in their
Definitely.
Discord?
Can you give them your handle if you're cool with that?
Yeah, I mean, I can just go into the your guys' Discord and just like say what's up, be like, hey, I just GM'd M&M. Feel free to DM me if you have any questions.
Yeah,
Cool.
that'd be awesome.
Yeah,
We-
I feel like people might really appreciate that just because this is one of those games where it's like you need a little bit of experience. So if at
I
least
agree.
you're getting advice from somebody with experience, that might be helpful.
No,
I
Because this is
definitely agree.
fun. This is really fun.
Asterisk. He's but one guy.
Yeah.
If you all hoard
Yeah.
him with questions, he might not instantaneously get back to you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
wild. He has like
Yeah.
a life besides
Yeah, I
Besides
do.
playing games.
I work 12-hour
unfortunately.
days, so
Oof.
from the hours of 7 to 7,
Jeez. Every
Pacific
day.
Pacific
daily he
Standard
works.
Time, Tuesday through Wednesday, I am busy, or Tuesday through Thursday.
Wait
Right?
a
Okay,
second.
I
I
was
was
like,
like
that's a
2
lot.
days a week.
No,
Dude,
Tuesday
I
through Thursday, and
I'll
every
work
other Friday.
12s forever.
Yeah, well, and
It's
we'll
2 days a week.
when we launch the first episode, we can like make a note to be like, this is the guy.
Mhm.
That's me.
Are you in our Discord?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I was gonna out you in front of all of our fans if you weren't.
Okay. Well,
Yeah.
Sick.
Thanks for
Thank
listening
you
to the end, you
for
freak.
yeah.
running it. Right?
Yeah, seriously.
This
it
is-
was
Of course,
so
I had a
good.
blast.
Awesome.
Thank you guys so much for having me. It
Yeah,
was so
this was
fun.
great.
Anytime, dude.
Yeah.
Well, I
Well,
mean,
that-
you're welcome anytime, but if Damien doesn't want you here, that you can come to our house.
Excellent.
Yeah, that sounds like me. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Just gonna. Yeah.
You can go to my tea parties.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah.
Wow.
Pinky's out.
I've
You're the first
never
person who's ever been invited.
That's
Yep.
not true. It's a running gag. I invite them to my tea parties. They don't go.
He's never invited anyone.
Who knows?
Except for
He's
you
never
now.
had a tea
So-
party.
Who knows the truth? Not me. Not our stinky listeners.
Anyway,
That
Yeah.
stink.
play Mutants and Masterminds.
Yeah.
Give it a
Yeah.
shot, man. Let us know
Check
how
us
hard
out
it is.
on the Discord, on the Instagram,
On YouTube soon.
YouTube soon.
Have we started talking
All
about
over
that?
the place.
Yeah, we've talked about it
We
for
have,
a
yeah.
hot
YouTube,
minute, but
Patreon, Instagram.
joke's on you. You have to keep listening to find out when that's going to
Yeah,
actually happen.
fucking
It is, though.
It's
is.
going to come out the same time that Star Citizen comes out. So go ahead
Oh,
and have
I don't know what that
No.
means, but it sounds bad.
Oh,
no.
Bye.
Bye.
Later.
Bye.
That's so fun. I'm like sad. I want to play this.
would like to play it too.
Boo.